obviously you're here because I first became familiar with your work just like through Boston Calling. But I know your work does supersede Boston Calling. So do you mind telling me more about your role at Crashline Productions?
Yeah, right now I just pretty much focus on the talent buying this time of year. And I'm no longer actually technically the marketing director, but I do still help out, and I imagine I will when we move, once we get the lineup done and we move into the announce, I'll still help Lindsay out a lot, I'm sure, because I don't want her to be overwhelmed by anything. She wears a lot of hats. We all kind of do.
It's certainly a lot of moving parts. So does Crashline Production, they solely focus on Boston Calling, or do they do other events?
Yeah, for the time being, we just do. We're part of a company now called C3 Presents, which is sort of the festival wing of Live Nation, and they produce all the Lollapaloozas around the world, Austin City Limits.
Wow.
They do. I think they book Stubbs in Austin, Bonnaroo, Shaky Knees, Innings, Oceans Calling, Country Calling. But our team is very small. We're like a 5-person team, and we pretty much just produce the one event.
No way, 5 people for the entire 3-day festival.
Well, I mean, you've been there, so on site, there's clearly a lot more people. We bring in security and staging and production and fencing and porta potties. There's so many different vendors that are involved, and then we work closely with. If you've been to the festival, you'll notice a lot of the food vendors are local. Mm-hmm. We want people to be eating, food from familiar establishments, and it sort of helps ingratiate, I think, ourselves in with the local community instead of just, being a silo where we have our own food. And I think that would be, kind of boring. Or I used to work a lot of beer festivals, and the food was never very. It was always just like cheeseburgers, pizza, pretzels, and then once food trucks started becoming a thing, like it was awesome because if you're at a beer festival all day, people tend to get hungry. So having good food options, and much like at a festival, sort of lends itself to people having a better experience.
That's funny you say that. We had the talent buyer from Somo Festival on, which is out in Prince Edward Island, like 2 weeks ago, and he said gone are the days of hot dogs and like just cheeseburgers at a music festival. I then went to a music festival that weekend, and it was, I won't say what it was, but it was arguably one of the worst ones I've been to, and they only had like hot dogs and like Doritos. Yeah.
You got to have, we try to have 20 or 30 vendors on site, so you can get, a veggie wrap, you can get a veggie plate, you can get, some lactose-free ice cream usually, and then a pork sandwich, Roxy's grilled cheese. I think we have Smoke Shop, we have Tasty Burger. There's a lot of different things there. We had Mr. Tuna from Portland, Maine, one year. Doing like hand rolls of tuna, which is pretty high end and fancy, but also just a great option to have when you're walking around.
Yeah. And it makes you want to stay there for like the entire day and keep coming back. But nevertheless, before we get more into Boston Calling, I want to talk about just your career as a whole, because I know you spent a lot of time in the alcohol industry prior to Boston Calling and the work that you do with the fest. Was that intentional? Did you ever see yourself making that transition, and what kind of inspired it?
I think I sort of always wanted to. Like we were talking before the podcast, and I was a college radio dork. I was walking down the hallway one day and I saw this musician, and I said, "What are you doing here?" And he was like, "I go to school here." And it's sort of, I've told this story before to like students, but like that at the time, it was like there was MTV and terrestrial radio, and everyone on those things didn't seem real, like real people.
Yeah.
And it's, and it sort of bridged the gap for me where I was like, "What? You go to school here?" And he was like, "Yeah, I met this guy at a radio station. We started the band." And I said, "We have a radio station?" So then I went down to the radio station and I said, "How do you get a show?" And they were like, there's no one wants Mondays noon to 3, but I took it. And sort of like was very interested in, and I was taking a photo class. So I would bring my camera to shows, the Middle East and Bill's Bar and Paradise. And, I started, doing radio at Salem State, and then I was doing radio at Wheaton College because my friend went there. And then I got an internship in Chicago, and I helped out on a radio show at University of Chicago. And WHBK is like a legendary radio station because it was the first radio station to play hip hop in Chicago.
Wow.
Shout out to JP Chill. And we did like every other Saturday night, midnight to 3 a.m. So it was just, you're college age and you're rolling into the studio at midnight and rolling out at 4 a.m. to go get like Harold's fried chicken or something. So I was very interested in that. And then that sort of fell apart. I'm old, so like 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
And a lot of the labels, I think Loud Records was a client. They kind of like went out of business. We had like Mobb Deep, Wu-Tang. We also had like Destiny's Child and Mariah Carey. And so there was not going to be a job for me, like a paying job. So I came back and I was a mailman, going to school at night and still kind of doing radio from time to time. And I just sort of got out of the music because it just didn't fit into my life. And I was, I was a broke boy, like living at home with my mom, trying to, finish my degree. And I wound up kind of randomly getting a job at a small marketing company, and their clients were Jack Daniels and Guinness and Miller Lite, or maybe not Miller Lite, but all these, Jim Beam, and so I was helping to do sort of some events with them, and then their client was Jack Daniels, and Jack Daniels called me up one day and they were like, "We bought a race car. Like, do you want to run the NASCAR tour for us on the marketing side?" And I was like, "Dude, I'm from Lynn, Massachusetts. Like, I don't know shit about NASCAR." And the guy was like, "Oh, dude, I'm from Toronto. Like, we don't know anything." He actually said, "We don't know fuck all about NASCAR either, but we'll figure it out." So we went on the road. I did that for a year, came
like
home.
A full tour.
I was on the NASCAR tour on like the marketing side, doing like bar events and like at-track activations, and just we were like the Jack Daniels guys. We kind of just rolled around the country in a big truck with a trailer and did like on-site, experiential marketing. And I came back. I worked for Jim Beam. Like another coworker was working for them at the time and said, "Oh, why don't you come over, work for us?" And at that time, I wasn't really involved in music at all. I don't even think I was going to shows anymore. Like, I was not involved. And I got laid off, started bartending in 2008, and I told the students this, like, if you're going to work in marketing, you're the first to get fired, or let go whenever there's like a recession or a downturn in the market. So be wary of that. So I was bartending at a bar that had live music. It was called Church over by Fenway.
Okay.
It's not there anymore, but it's near like the Target, where the Target is now, the Star Market. So I started putting on my own shows like once a month because I was getting interested in, I saw some bands I really liked. And then I started managing a band because I thought they were super talented dudes. And that led to managing a number of different bands. All the while, I got a date. I needed a real job with health insurance. So I got a job, I was getting married at the time. I needed a health insurance. So I got a job at Narragansett Beer, sort of their marketing guy, and was traveling around, and I would help out bands when I could, and, go on tour with them when I could to help out as far as like a tour manager or merch, and sort of through that, during all that time, I became friends with the folks who were starting Boston Calling, and was sort of, I've been to every one as a fan or as a friend or a guest or with a band that I was working with. Sometimes I'd help run a bar at some of them when they moved over to Harvard and had bigger bar areas. So I was always close to it and around it. And then there was a pandemic. I got laid off again. watch it marketing people. And, you know, they were like, you don't have a job here anymore. Or they basically were like, your role is not going to be a job that we're going to have. And I understand that, because it's like what on-site marketing was happening at the time. There was none of that, you know, so I was out of work for a while, and these guys called me up and said they needed some help and if I could recommend anybody. And I, you know, I said, I don't have a job. So we worked our way through it. And it's a lot more complicated than that and a lot longer process. But it was sort of, you know, I was a ski bum and it was like April and I was looking at the mountain melting in front of me, and I had a broken arm and I needed knee surgery. So I was like, I should probably get a job with some health insurance. And that sort of happened all that spring of 2021. So they were bringing the festival back for 22 and needed help getting it off the ground. And I'm really grateful for that, because I kind of found the job that I probably envisioned wanting when I was 20 and didn't know it existed, you know. And through the internship, you realize like there is a whole world of people behind the scenes. They don't just show up. You know, we're standing here in the studio right now, and everyone's lined up for this ELO show tonight at the Garden, and you know, a lot goes into putting this on. You know, there's hundreds of people that are involved in making this happen. So the good times don't just happen themselves. Someone has to be working in order to help produce it, you know?
That is honestly a truly fascinating story. It seems like you were kind of in the right places at all the right times. When you were managing and like doing the gigs at the bar that you're bartending at, was there ever an end goal in mind, or were you just doing it because you liked it?
I was just bored, and, you know, you can get into, I hope there's podcasts about the service industry, but you can get into like a rut, you know, where you just feel every day is the same, and you're just cracking open PBRs and pouring shots of whiskey all night long. So I didn't know that it would go here, and I definitely didn't imagine that it would, or could have foreseen being in this chair with you right now. But I always did want to be involved with it. I have like bad motor skills, so I wasn't going to be like on stage with a guitar, you know? I was always going to be like over there, making sure that people are there on time, and that the production, you know, that the production rider got there and everything's ready when the people show up, you know?
And so when you finally took this job, did you feel like you had to kind of learn along the way, or did you know a lot going into it?
I have learned volumes in the past 3.5 years. You know, I had booked shows, I had toured with bands, I had lugged gear around and slept in uncomfortable chairs in parking lots, but you know, that's not really how a festival works. A festival is just like a destination, and everyone's rolling into town. Everything has to go off perfectly. That's why, you know, our team is really good at the preparations ahead of time, you know, because if the weekend of if everything is done correctly, the weekend of the show, all I can kind of do is wait for something to go wrong. Yeah. Because if you haven't done everything ahead of time, then you've really messed up, you know? So it's, you know, someone calling and saying that 2022, the first festival we had a rain, you know, we had an evacuation of the site. And one of my favorite stories was that right after we got everyone back onto the site, Black Pumas just killed on the main stage. You know, Orville Peck was playing over on the blue stage. She was killing it. And the band, Black Pumas, came off the stage and they were just thrilled. And one of them, I don't know who it was, maybe it was a backup singer even, just said, we thought we were going to play to no one because, you know, everyone left for the rain. And how did you get people back in here? And I said, I don't know. Like, everyone did their job, you know? Yeah. Hundreds of people did their jobs, got people back in and out safely, which is the most important thing. and we changed the schedule for the day and moved bands around. You know, Earth Gang was great. They had to move from one stage to another in order to accommodate, you know, Kenny Hoopla over here and Run the Jewels, you know, over here. And it was just an incredible team, and it was cool in sort of like our war room to like watch it all go down and happen and be a part of it. And you know, I sort of, as like a mentor when I started the job, was working with Randy Feibiger, and he books Madison Square Garden, you know, and now the Sphere. You know, he's a great guy, and he's really knowledgeable and was very gracious in walking me through a lot of these steps, you know, that I hadn't been through before.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you can look at a rain delay as a positive thing, because I think from like an outsider, it sounds like my worst nightmare.
Worst. You're like looking at the radar and you're watching the clouds and you're going, oh no, please, please, please. And then it just happens, you know, and it dumped so much water in an hour, you know,
Yeah.
and then everyone popped back into action and the sun came out and it was a gorgeous night.
There you go. It's funny you mentioned the rain delay. I had gone to the like very first Boston Calling, but one of the ones that like really stuck with me was, I think it was 2014, and it was Lord, the National, the 1975 bleachers.
I was there.
It was, my friends and I still talk about it to this day. Like we skipped school, I think, to go on the Friday of the day, but I just remember Lord had the rain delay and we were so bummed. And then when she came back, I think it was because of the rain delay. It was just like the energy was unmatched, and I don't think I've seen a set as great as that since.
Yeah, it was a really great night. You know, they did the right thing. You know, the safety of the crowd is really paramount in that kind of situation. And I remember I was just there as a fan that year, and we all went, I think, into the Ames Hotel, which isn't even there anymore. And we were just checking, you know, like Twitter, waiting, you know, like when are we going to get to go back in, you know? And I think they had to cut a couple sets, but that's, you know, that's what you got to do in order to get everyone on site. And you definitely don't want, you know, you want people to be able to get back in slowly, safely, and security wise, you know. Again, that's sort of the most important part.
Well, fast forward to this year's Boston Calling. Truly 3 gorgeous days.
Blessed with weather, yeah.
Yeah, true. Like it was perfect. Something that really stuck out to me about this year, I feel like it really showcased how quick Chappell Roan's rise to fame was.
That's all anybody wants to talk to me about.
Yep. I just remember, so I was there like before doors because I was doing podcasts for Happy Valley, and the gates opened and they were just running in, and her set wasn't until 4 p.m.
Yeah. So that was, you know, normally, you know, everyone kind of rolls in for the headliner. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what they're all there for. And if people come early, I think it's wonderful that these smaller bands get the opportunity to be seen, you know, and really they benefit from the crowd that's there to see whoever, you know. And I remember the band I managed, like our friends had played the year before at Boston Calling, and there was like not a lot of people there, and it was a total bummer. The great set, but like I was like bummed out for my buddies. And I was saying to the band, I was like, when you get up there, you got to tell the crowd to come over. And we walked around the corner, and there were like 10,000 people there. This is at City Hall, and it was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So, and I don't think that anyone came specifically to see Tiger Man Whoa, but it was whoever was playing after them probably was like so beneficial to the local band, you know? And in that respect, you know, Chappell Roan obviously is a major superstar, and I'd like to imagine in a world that we're like geniuses, but we're not. You know, we're just if I was some outlier, she wouldn't have also been on Hangout and Bonnaroo and Lala and, you know, Coachella. Like, we saw it coming, and we believed the agents that believed in her, you know, because she'd been a musician for years, and she'd been, you know, in her own right, like toiling around waiting for that moment, and it was here. And, you know, I remember writing it down in like August of last year. Like, someone mentioned her name, I wrote it down in my notebook. And then checked it out, and I remember seeing it was the My Kink is Karma video, and I was like, what is this? Like, this is amazing. And then I saw Pink Pony Club, which I didn't know had been out for, years at that point. And I was like, oh my God, another one. Like, this is amazing. And then the record came out, like a few weeks later. And then I missed her show at House of Blues because I had been at Austin City Limits. But, we believed in it. And I'm just lucky that I had her on the main stage.
Yeah.
Like, because if not, we could have had, it would have just been a bummer if she was, even earlier in the day or whatever. But it was, she would have overloaded the blue stage, which is, I've seen a lot of people over there for Avril and for Niall Horan when he played. It was massive over there, and Flaming Lips and, King Gizzard and Goose, like they just kill over there. But, I just happened to be lucky that I had her on the main stage. And that was sort of the best practice that we gave to our counterparts in the business was, if you have Chappell Roan, move her to the biggest stage because, it's going to be big. And when I rolled in at 8 a.m, there were people out on the sidewalk and they were all wearing pink.
Yeah.
I had this shirt. I wore this shirt because I was like, I got my pink on. I'm here. And then, after a certain time, they let people in to get them off the street, and they can be on site, but not through the doors. And I drove my golf cart out there and with like cases of water because these kids, I don't know how long they've been out here. It was hot, it was sunny, so I started handing out waters. And the woman in the front of the line, I said, "How long have you been here?" And she'd been there since 4 a.m. So I saw Chappell backstage, and I told her that. I said, "Oh, there's people have been here since early this morning. Like, people are."
That's 12
psyched.
hours before
people are
set time.
psyched. And then after the set, she was watching Megan Thee Stallion, and I noticed her standing near me, and I said, what you did today was kind of like what Noah did last year, but you did it 2 hours earlier,
Yeah.
And everyone was wearing the pink. It was a cool moment, for the festival, I think, and for maybe a lot of people who might not normally be festival goers that bought tickets specifically to not just see her, but that was a day where we had Megan and Hozier and the Killers, and I think a lot of people just like us, like, discovered it along the way. I just discovered it when the agent told me about it, and she had that Olivia tour, and I remember watching a video of her, just playing in an arena, and people didn't really know. And then I remember when she played here in the Garden upstairs, there was a video that I think Olivia Rodrigo posted it, and it was everyone singing Pink Pony Club. And I was like, man, like everyone gets it now.
Yeah.
This worked, So it was really cool, for the fans who probably bought tickets to see Hozier and the Killers and Megan. And then on the way to the show realized, as it was getting closer, like, oh no, I got to get there early, because of this new artist that's coming out. And it was great, like you said, great weather and big crowd. Everyone knew the words, when I have a video on my phone of her walking out and everyone's just screaming the words back to her, like the opening note of the song, which is really cool, and that happened for Noah before too, we had him on the main stage there, and cool for the smaller bands, like we were talking about earlier. I think we were watching the Killers, and one of the guys from Royal Otis walked by, and I was like, I introduced myself. I just said, I'm Pete. I booked the festival. Like, thanks for coming out. And, he's an Aussie guy, and he just started going off about how this is the best festival. And I was like, well, you kind of had the best slot. You played right before Chappell Roan.
Yeah.
Like, normally there's not 35,000 people, there at 2:30 in the afternoon or whatever. So I think everyone had a good time, I hope.
We had the Heavy on the show right after their set. And
they were psyched.
They said it was the biggest crowd they ever played. And they did a whole festival set this year, and that was their biggest festival crowd ever. Not even festival crowd, just crowd ever.
I was standing on the deck when they came up, and they were just like same thing. I introduced myself, and they remembered me because I'd met them at Newport the year before.
Yeah.
But they were just like, man, this is a lot of people. I was like, I know it's early, but still, you guys are all benefiting from the pink army.
Yeah. Well, something that genuinely makes Boston Calling stand out, and in my eyes makes it actually special, is for every Chapel Roan and Meg the Stallion, there's like a Cake Swag or a Justin Clancy, and the Orange Stage. It's not just, you're not just like putting Boston artists on the festival lineup because you have to. You're definitely going out of your way to highlight them and showcase them. So I'd love to learn more about like why, because there's so many other festivals that don't do something like that. So why invest in such a space for local talent?
Well, I think it's, our team has always, way before I was, officially involved, they've always supported local and booked, 1, 2, 3, and then when I moved over to Harvard, they were able to add more local acts. So that's not like a new thing or an outlier. I think when we saw the opportunity for the Orange Stage, we sort of saw that as a way to really ramp up the local aspect of the festival, because we were moving away from the arena programming, and that's not to say the arena might not come back someday. In some type of function, but when we saw the opportunity to have a smaller stage, but it's nothing to shake a stick at. Like, it's a real stage, and we put it over there. We said, okay, we have this much room, and if we can book a bunch of local bands, like as me as a younger guy working for a beer company, managing bands for like no money on the side, I would just be psyched if my bands got on the poster. I remember we went out to Stagecoach because I got a couple of bands on Stagecoach, and we traveled all the way across the country. Like, some of the people flew, one of the bands I was with, I traveled with them, and they play. It's 100,000 people there, and they played to like 300, at like noon.
Yeah.
And this old timer was standing next to me at front of the house, and he said, "Are these your boys up there?" I said, "Oh yeah, that's my band that I work with." And he just looked over. He said, "Don't worry that no one's here." He said, "Your name's on the poster, and that's really what matters. Your name is next to Stapleton and Eric Church or whoever it was. Carrie Underwood played that year, so that's what it was. The look, and we thought if we can give that opportunity, and people go see these bands, it'll be great. But we didn't know what to expect. And if you've been over there, like, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Like, how many people stop by and will stand there for 20 minutes or maybe a whole set and check out a band they've never even heard of before. Well, hopefully they listen to like the playlist I make and like they checked it out ahead of time. But I was floored. The first band, I think it was Chelsea Curve in 2022 on the Friday, they started, and I drove my golf cart over there, and I was surprised. I was like, oh my God, there's like a couple hundred people here. This is amazing. And then like, I think it was Crooked Coast or Van Buren Records, like it was mobbed over there. So we've actually in the subsequent years pushed that stage back a little bit to create some more room so that people aren't, it's more that there were so many people it overflowed into the road and it blocked where all the golf cart and like foot traffic is. And the location of that stage is very deliberate because I want people to say, oh, I'm going to go see this band over on Blue, or I just saw a band on Blue. Now I'm walking over to the main field, and I want them to see a band and stop. That's why it's counter-programmed directly to Blue stage. So as soon as Blue stops, Orange starts to try to catch those people, whether they're going back or forth. And it's been great. We're super happy. I think hopefully the bands are happy. Not only did they get their names on like a national festival, but they actually get to be seen. Mm-hmm. Whereas I've definitely been on the other side of that where there's like nobody in front of your stage.
Yeah. No, I mean, we spoke to a lot of the Orange Stage artists, and it was genuinely so clear that they knew they had an opportunity there, and like they really put their all into it. Like they brought dancers, some people brought choirs. Like they all took it very seriously.
Yeah, Chrysalis had like a 12-person band 2 years ago, and I saw that when you mentioned Cake Swag, like she had like a huge production with all the dancers and everything. Oh, as far as booking the local bands, I don't. Going into it, I felt like if I just booked the local stage, which I technically do, but I thought it would just look, it might not have the right look. I don't want it to be like my stage that I'm programming technically. And I'm 45 years old. I don't go to the Middle East 3 nights a week like I used to and go to Sinclair all the time. And so what I usually do is I have a group of friends, peers, people who may be like a writer or a local musician themselves who's played the festival in the past. And I sort of go to them and I say, can you send me 10 bands that you think that you like? I also like, Boston Music Awards, definitely like pay attention to who's getting, like that's how I found out about Key. I saw her upstairs here at Big Night Live perform at the Boston Music Awards and I was like, oh my God, this is great. Like, you got to play next year. So I sort of take that list, and I have a few of my own. I've already got a bunch of bands and that I would like to have on that stage, and I just sort of whittle it down. And sometimes it depends on like who's available, and sometimes if they got a tour that week or something, we just say you'll play next year or something. So we try to be as like diplomatic about that as possible, so it doesn't just look like it's like the Pete Boyd boring fest, stage or whatever.
I appreciate the let it go of the ego there. I feel like that's a rather unique thing. I feel like a lot of people would.
Ultimately, I decide, but no, it's really cool, and it's also fun to sort of be able to help out these acts because I know what it's like. I've never been a musician on that side of things, but to be sending emails constantly and bothering people, and when we got Stagecoach, we didn't submit or anything. Someone just emailed me out of the blue.
Nice.
And I was like, who's this person? And I was like, sure, we'll check our schedule. And I had to Google Stagecoach, and I was like, oh crap! Like, guys, we're going to California. This is sick. And then that sort of gave me the confidence to cold call people. So I remember we got like 5 bands on Floyd Fest that same year because I just sent them to a guy, and I was like, hey, dude, like, check out these bands. And so a number of bands I worked with have played Boston Calling, and friends bands, so I understand how important all that is from their side of things. So being able to help out as someone when I was younger, like I was lost, like I talked to some kids at Northeastern and I was like, guys, you're like, cause they're like, how do we get your job? And they're like ready to take notes. And I'm like, I don't know, dude. I was a mailman, like I was walking around in the rain like 14 miles a day going, damn it, what else could I be doing? And also being a mailman's a pretty rad job. Get a lot of time to yourself to think.
Probably a good opportunity to discover some new music.
Also, I think I weighed like 40 pounds less when I was walking 12 miles a day. But I told the kids in the class, I was like, I don't know. I hope for you there's like a linear path that's like direct to what you want to do. And if I can help you get there, like contact agencies, contact management companies. I didn't know any of that crap back in the day. So, there's definitely like a non-circuitous way to get there. Like it was like, I want to do this. I want to be a music manager. And you went like this all the way around, that was a big circle with my hand for people not watching at home.
360 degrees. This is a wonderful time to ask this question. It's my favorite part of the Music Industry Expert series that we do because genuinely a lot of our listeners... Huh? Oh, yeah. Don't sell yourself short. Nice. I know you just said you don't know how you got there, but don't sell yourself short.
I don't, really. I told you the whole story pretty much.
A lot of our listeners are independent artists or people interested in the industry as a whole. You did just kind of touch on booking the independent artists for Boston Calling, but I'm curious, like, what advice would you give to an independent artist that's just looking to maybe not even just get booked at a festival, but just get booked more?
Don't give up. You know, I mean, if I could play an instrument, I probably would have given up a long time ago because, you know, life gets you down. But, you know, I remember, I don't know if this answers your question, but I remember in 2016, the bands I work with had played Floyd Fest and like Stagecoach that year. And I don't remember who it was or if it was really like, I don't know if it came up in conversation about like giving up. Like maybe this is just, you know, we're going to not quit our day jobs. You know, we're just going to. And I think I remember I was like, guys, at the time, I was like, I'm 38 years old. Like, and at the time, I specifically remember saying, I was like, who else is 38? Chris Stapleton is 38. Jason Isbell is probably 38. Sturgill Simpson is like 38. Nathaniel Rateliff at the same time that and I was like, you think these guys like made it overnight? No, like, you know, you go to, this is a weird metaphor, but I was out in California skiing in the Palisades in Tahoe, and I met this guy, and he turned out to be like a retired pro snowboarder, and he was like, "Oh, you want to come with me and my buddies?" I was like, "Hell yeah, dude! Show me the mountain. I don't know this place." And then the next morning, I was gonna meet up with them and ski again, and before I met up with them, I like bumped into Johnny Mosley, the Olympic like legendary skier. And I bumped into this guy and I was like, Johnny Mosley, holy crap. I was like, let me take a picture with you. And I was like total like stuttering probably, like fanboying. And then when I got to the bottom, I saw the guy, Dave, the snowboarder. And I was like, dude, I just ran into Johnny Mosley this morning. And he was like, everyone here is Johnny Mosley. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, everyone here is an Olympic level skier. They just like work at a burrito stand. You know, they make your coffee, like something, they just didn't make it, you know, or something like that. And I said to him, oh, like Nashville. Like whenever you're in Nashville, like the person pouring your drink is probably gonna be Margot Price in 5 years. You know, you like they're working towards something. So like, you know, like not giving up, I think is important because a lot of these people that didn't become stars when they're 21, you know, they didn't give up. Yeah. And now, you know, they got noticed by the right person or they played the right show and someone was in the crowd that recognized their talent and maybe they could give them an opportunity to, you know, there's a band that's going to play next year that I just noticed on Instagram one day. And I was like a video that popped into my feed and I was like, whoa, what a show. And it was at like it was from like Porch Fest in Somerville. And I was like, amazing. Like, what a cool band. And then, you know, I reached out to them and I said, you know, you got to come play the festival, you know? I think that's a band, or there are a number of bands that like when you check them out, they might not have a big social media following, you know? Yeah. Like they might not be big into, you know, I emailed the band the other day. I was like, you don't even have a Spotify, you know? And they were like, we're releasing our first song this Friday. Like we just play like DIY shows in the basement and like haven't put out any actual music. We just play it live. But I was like, I can't book you. Like I can't, well, I'm going to, but I was like, I can't book you if you don't like have a presence. Yeah. Like you need to have a way for people when we release the lineup, people can go and find your music. And, you know, last year the High Water Haulers were like that. You know, they didn't have any music that you could find, but I knew them from other bands they had been in. And they were like super talented. So I was like, oh, you guys started another band? Like, come play the festival, but also like put some fucking music out.
Get a Spotify.
Please.
No, that is actually something I wanted to bring up because I think that's something that people get lost in, and maybe by people, I mean me. I was just like from an absolute misinformed mindset. I was looking at some of the artists on the Orange stage and I'm like, they literally have like 30 monthly listeners. Like at what point do numbers matter? And I think I've actually learned myself is they don't matter. What matters is like you have a song on Spotify and like you have something to show for your work, and you also like are actively gigging and like in the industry.
Yeah, I know if it's like if they're playing all the time and doing tours, like that's great. And if you have like a bazillion, you know, we had senseless optimism this past year, and like Brittany has like well over 100,000 followers on Instagram. And when I noticed, had been following them for a while myself, and then never really knew that. And then one day I just saw that. I was like, whoa, it's like, you're like popular. Like really, people know who you are.
Yeah.
And it's all because she does those like cool videos where she's playing every instrument and running around, you know? So that's good marketing.
Like, what advice do you have for someone that's looking to get involved in the industry in some capacity?
Don't email me. I don't know. It's you know, this day and age, it's different, I think, because of the internet. Like, you could just put out a song and someone recognizes it on YouTube, and the next thing you know, you're Justin Bieber, you know? Like, there's that side of it, but there's also, like, I think it's important to be a part of the community. You know, when I started going to shows in college, I didn't even, like, know that like local things happened. You know, I'm like, I started going to the Middle East, and you know, to see like Black Moon, and like we saw Eminem at the Middle East before his record even came out.
Wow.
You know, and De La Soul and all these bands I used to go see, and then they would be local openers, and then when I would bring my camera to shows, people would ask me for photos. So that's how I started getting to know people. You know, the local performers would be like, hey, can we use some of your photos? And then I would like leverage that, be like, can you get me into the next show for free, or can I have some beer tickets? I'm broke. Like, what's up? and you know, it was the dawn of the internet. So like message boards were like a big thing, and there was like a local message board that everyone that went to the shows was on. So you could be like, oh, you're that guy from the message board, like. And then, you know, you sort of like the community aspect of it is really important. And you know, the reason I wanted to work, you know, I was already doing college radio, but the reason I wanted to work in music, and the catalyst for it was that I don't mean to name check people, but I like knew people that knew the Atmosphere guys.
Okay.
And so I went to see like Atmosphere at Bill's Bar. And I met Jay Bird, who was like their tour. He was on tour with them, and he gave me a record for my radio show. And I literally told him, I was like, I don't have any money. Like, I spent $12, and that's all the money I had to get into the show. And my buddy bought me a beer because I don't have any money. And he gave me a record, and I was playing on my radio show. And then you know, a local promoter was having me come to shows to take photos. And he was like, I want you to interview the Arsonists, this rap group from New York. He's like, I want you to interview the Arsonists for this like newsletter I have. And so then I was like, oh, cool. I get to like take pictures. I'll get to write an interview and write an article. And before I could talk to the band, they said, you have to talk to their tour manager. And then the guy came over, and it was Jay Bird again. And I was like, oh, we met, you know, whatever. And I was like, what's a tour manager? And he's like, I just make sure they show up and get paid, pretty much. And I was like, that's a job? And that's literally why I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
You know, and then I got this internship, and, you know, and randomly ran into him like at Lollapalooza. Someone was like, hey, Pete, I want to introduce you to someone. He turned around, and I was like,
you again.
I was like, I don't know if you remember me, but like a million years ago, like you were and he's like, he runs Rhymesayers. You know, he's like one of the head guys up there, I think, still probably. But, you know, and to that point, one of the most important things I think to tell people is don't burn bridges, you know, because you never know who you're going to come back around and run into, because it's a way smaller world than you'd imagine. So, you know, you don't want to do the wrong thing and burn somebody and then come around and that person like works at a venue, or all the people that scorned me, you know.
That's very true. That's something that is real and actually happens.
For sure, man. So yeah, I still work with the people I work with have been in and around this for years, you know, and I didn't meet them because we were working together, or, you know, I met them because I worked in the liquor business and met them through like another channel. And now, we still see the same people and work all year round to sort of get this thing off the ground. And hopefully we'll put together some successful big name acts to come play on sunny days in May.
Heck yeah. Well, Peter, this genuinely was one of my favorite parts of this year, or one of the favorite episodes of this series. So thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it.
I'm going to check all the other podcasts you've done. See if you say that all the time.
No, I literally don't. This was genuinely like from the music. And I'll tell you, actually, I'll tell you a few stories off recording. But I wrap up every interview with this question.
Okay.
It's my favorite question to ask. Unrelated to music, unrelated to your career, which we just talked about. What's like a goal you got in your personal life that you want to accomplish?
A goal in my personal life, to pay off the house I bought last year, because I signed a lot of paperwork, signed my name a lot,
mm-hmm.
and then I said, okay, so now what? And the guy just goes, well, now you're riddled with debt. So I told that story the other day, and I would like to, I don't know, just kind of be happy with what you got, That's what I would like to, have my family and friends around for a long time. That's kind of what's most important to me. And goes to fun shows. That's the perk of the job. It's not like I talk to rock stars all day. I talk to agents, and I sit at home in my sweatpants, and when you have a big win like today, I'm not in an office where I can walk out and be like, high five, we booked this band. I'm just I'm gonna go home. Maybe I'll have a beer or something to celebrate.
Definitely. You deserve it. Well, I'm wishing you another successful Boston Calling in May, and I'm hoping you pay off your mortgage.
We hope to see you there, man. And everyone who's listening, come on out.